From pioneering Asia's first integrated steel plant in 1907 to becoming a global leader, Tata Steel's journey is one of transformation and progress. Reinforcing our commitment to fuel India's growth, we are doubling our production capacity in India to 40 million tons. With a focus on net zero by 2045, we are transitioning towards low-carbon steel making in the UK and the Netherlands. We are also setting up a green steel plant in Ludhiana, India. Driven by innovation, our advanced products and solutions are tailored to address evolving customer needs. By partnering with startups, academia and external partners, we are transforming the steel value chain. Leveraging artificial intelligence and Industry 4.0 technologies, we are setting new benchmarks in safety and manufacturing excellence. Our people power our purpose. Across geographies, we champion diversity and inclusion while enabling our workforce to be future-ready. We uplift communities through healthcare, education, sports, livelihood programs and more, impacting millions. We drive long-term value by managing financial and operational resources with efficiency and foresight, investing in growth and sustainability. At Tata Steel, we are not just making steel, we are making tomorrow. Tata Steel, we also make tomorrow.
कभी तो पैसे सेव कर लिया कर।
कभी तो पैसे सेव कर लिया कर दीदी।
लाइफ में ऐसे खर्चे तो होते रहेंगे, पर बजाज के सुपर सेवर BLDC फैंस दे आपको सालों साल सेविंग्स। बजाज, बिल्ड फॉर लाइफ।
रोहन,
पापा आ गए।
रोहन,
पापा आ गए।
लाइफ जैसी हो वैसी ही चलती रहे, कोई गारंटी नहीं, पर बजाज के सुपर टफ फैंस दे आपको सालों साल डे 1 वाली फीलिंग। बजाज, बिल्ड फॉर लाइफ। लाइफ जैसी हो वैसी ही चलती रहे, कोई गारंटी नहीं, पर बजाज के सुपर टफ फैंस दे आपको सालों साल डे 1 वाली फीलिंग। बजाज, बिल्ड फॉर लाइफ।
What's the time?
अरे 11 ही बजे।
कुछ साल बाद
Leaving?
जैसी हो वैसी ही चलती रहे, कोई गारंटी नहीं, पर बजाज के सुपर टफ एयर कूलर्स दे आपको सालों साल डे 1 वाली फीलिंग। बजाज, बिल्ड फॉर लाइफ।
In 1984, our founder, Dr. K. Anji Reddy, set up Dr. Reddy's Laboratories to bring medicines within everybody's reach around the world. And for about 4 decades, we have been working towards one clear purpose: driving access and affordability to innovative medicines, because good health can't wait. As a leading global pharma company today, we are led by our core tenets of deep science capabilities, progressive people practices, and strong focus on corporate governance.
our families will never struggle to breathe. If we choose to keep our air clean, our actions today decide our tomorrow. HDFC Bank Parivartan is working today for a better tomorrow.
A new India is rising, bold, ambitious, and unwavering, guiding by the vision of Vikasit Bharat, a developed India. We are scripting one of the world's most powerful growth stories. From the fifth largest economy to a $5.8 trillion market cap, India's growth is on an ever-rising momentum. At the heart of this growth lies India's capital markets, home to over 5,500 listed companies, 300 plus IPOs, and 40 million new demat accounts in the last year. At the core of this transformation, powering trust, transparency, and inclusion is CDSL. India's capital markets continue to evolve rapidly, and CDSL has been at the forefront of this transformation. We have played a key role in enabling landmark reforms, such as the T+1 settlement cycle, interoperability among market infrastructure institutions, a unified investor app, and the direct credit of securities to retail investor accounts, positioning India's market infrastructure as a global benchmark. Further accelerating this momentum, CDSL is leading the charge in post-trade innovation, introducing powerful APIs that boost operational efficiency and automation. Our agile tech solutions are also equipping clearing members with smarter tools, making the market faster, even more efficient, and more investor-centric than ever before. With a 24/7 chatbot along with consolidated account statements in 23 languages, providing investors a comprehensive view of their holdings. We are ensuring access and support for every investor, from margin pledges to the reduction of the debt transaction tariffs, from multilingual investor services to real-time digital access. CDSL is not just a depository, it's a catalyst for investor empowerment. With 150 plus million demat accounts in a unique segregated structure, presence across 98% of India's zip codes, and over 570 partners and 13 regional branches, our goal is clear: to make every investor a self-reliant investor. India's growth story is relentless, and we are proud to be one of its trusted partners.
At Wipro, we believe that purpose fuels our business, and our business fuels our purpose. Our capabilities in consulting, design, engineering, and operations helps clients realize their boldest ambitions to build AI-powered, future-ready businesses.
India, a country of a billion dreams. At Bajaj Finserv, we are part of India's journey to making the dreams of Rohit, Diksha, Sejal, and many more come true. We launched our CPBFI program in 2016 to upskill young students and prepare them for employment in the banking and finance industry. Today, our CPBFI program has given wings to the dreams of 53,000 young people.
in this course, I came to know in depth what is actually banking. I am ready to switch from teaching sector to banking sector.
Nobody from my family is in this sector. Everybody is engaged with agriculture.
We have improved both our written and speaking abilities. It helped us boost confidence. At the same time, the classes were so engaging.
On completion of the CPBFI program, students undergo an assessment process followed by workshops by human resource professionals. This is extremely important as these mock interviews are simulated by Bajaj Finserv recruiters, providing students insights into industry expectations from them.
Through our CPBFI program, we have seen family incomes doubling and tripling when a student gets a job after graduation. And we are excited to be a part of India's journey to becoming a global knowledge superpower.
When you're in the business of creating better futures for everyone, you realize that there's often more than one finish line. And while speed is important, what really pushes everything forward is continuous transformation. It's what leads to better futures, to real substantial change. It connects the people, IP, and industries that create entirely new hybrid businesses. It turns an insurance industry that covers people into a wellness industry that helps them recover. It opens faster routes for first responders, teaches bacteria to eat microplastics from the ocean, deploys trusted AI to preserve and protect our forest and wildlife, and even fights wildfires from space. We are committed to perpetual impact because it's what pushes the world forward.
Joining a global chorus. The Song of Progress is never sung solo. We operate in virtually every continent. We speak your language. And wherever we are, we reach out, we share, we participate in the adventure of collective progress. For over 80 years, we have been creating happier, brighter tomorrows. 8 decades of trust. Larsen & Toubro.
From pioneering Asia's first integrated steel plant in 1907 to becoming a global leader, Tata Steel's journey is one of transformation and progress. Reinforcing our commitment to fuel India's growth, we are doubling our production capacity in India to 40 million tons. With a focus on net zero by 2045, we are transitioning towards low-carbon steel making in the UK and the Netherlands. We are also setting up a green steel plant in Ludhiana, India. Driven by innovation, our advanced products and solutions are tailored to address evolving customer needs. By partnering with startups, academia and external partners, we are transforming the steel value chain. Leveraging artificial intelligence and Industry 4.0 technologies, we are setting new benchmarks in safety and manufacturing excellence. Our people power our purpose. Across geographies, we champion diversity and inclusion while enabling our workforce to be future-ready. We uplift communities through healthcare, education, sports, livelihood programs and more, impacting millions. We drive long-term value by managing financial and operational resources with efficiency and foresight, investing in growth and sustainability. At Tata Steel, we are not just making steel, we are making tomorrow. Tata Steel, we also make tomorrow.
कभी तो पैसे सेव कर लिया कर।
कभी तो पैसे सेव कर लिया कर दीदी।
लाइफ में ऐसे खर्चे तो होते रहेंगे, पर बजाज के सुपर सेवर BLDC फैंस दे आपको सालों साल सेविंग्स। बजाज, बिल्ड फॉर लाइफ।
रोहन,
पापा आ गए।
रोहन,
पापा आ गए।
लाइफ जैसी हो वैसी ही चलती रहे, कोई गारंटी नहीं, पर बजाज के सुपर टफ फैंस दे आपको सालों साल डे 1 वाली फीलिंग। बजाज, बिल्ड फॉर लाइफ। लाइफ जैसी हो वैसी ही चलती रहे, कोई गारंटी नहीं, पर बजाज के सुपर टफ फैंस दे आपको सालों साल डे 1 वाली फीलिंग। बजाज, बिल्ड फॉर लाइफ।
Hello. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the CII Corporate Governance Summit. Request you to settle down. We are starting the inaugural session in 5 minutes. SEBI chair is coming in 5 minutes, so we are starting it. Please settle down.
In 1984, our founder, Dr. K. Anji Reddy, set up Dr. Reddy's Laboratories to bring medicines within everybody's reach around the world. And for about 4 decades, we have been working towards one clear purpose: driving access and affordability to innovative medicines, because good health can't wait. As a leading global pharma company today, we are led by our core tenets of deep science capabilities, progressive people practices, and strong focus on corporate governance.
our families will never struggle to breathe. If we choose to keep our air clean, our actions today decide our tomorrow. HDFC Bank Parivartan is working today for a better tomorrow.
Welcome and to all in this audience, and it's a very special welcome, and it's a privilege indeed to have Shri Tuhin Kanta Pandey, the chairman of SEBI, to be here with us for the 18th Corporate Governance Summit. This is the SEBI chairman's first CII public address. I mean, he's had many others after he's taken over as chair of SEBI, but as SEBI chairman to be at CII, this is the first time that he's doing a public address. We have had interactions with him, but in a public forum. So we are indeed most honored and indeed most delighted to welcome you, Mr. Chairman, for this summit. '18th Corporate Governance Summit means we have had it for 18 years, which means that as an institution we have tried to focus and learn and understand and work closely with the stakeholders, and SEBI has been an important part of this journey of 18 years when we converted much of our work on corporate governance into a public forum like this, and we have never held it anywhere else other than Mumbai. So we are so pleased to always have it in Mumbai and to get phenomenal feedback during the course of our the summit. We have been, as one understands from these 18 years of the summit itself, I was just speaking to the chairman, and we mentioned about our work which we did on the CII Voluntary Code of Corporate Governance, which was released way back in 1998, and we have Sanjeev Bajaj, the chairman of the Corporate Governance Council of CII at this point in time, who's also our past president, who is sitting on the dais today here. Very nice to have you here. The reason why I'm saying it is because the 1998 CII Voluntary Corporate Governance Code, when we released it, was released by Mr. Rahul Bajaj on behalf of CII. So it's always also a deep connect with you in that. I've had many other publications, of course. I'm not going to get into all of that, but we have built this summit up today, as you would know, on an area which the chairman has been talking about very strongly, and it's been also a discussion, but we need to bring it to practice in a manner, is building trust. And the second part, of course, is on multi-lens framework, if one can say, on prioritizing principle-based corporate governance. So that's another second bucket of discussions that we would look at during the course of the summit. And of course, very importantly, the top imperatives for future-ready boards. That's something, again, we have teams and discussions surrounding it. And lastly, of course, something that we keep talking about, and I don't think anybody in this world can, we have a phenomenal dynamism in geopolitics today in the globe. And therefore, with that changing dynamics of geopolitics and governance had to be an important part of our discussions during this summit. We have many distinguished speakers, technical experts who would be talking to us during the course of the summit. And as one can see, we have 500 plus very important people who are in this room, both at the CEO levels, the chair levels, managing directors, bankers, investment advisors, and credit rating agencies, and many on, depositors, law firms, and so on. So it's great to have this group present here to help us in this journey that we have, as an institution, have been taken, and none better than the chairman of SEBI, Shri Tuhin Kanta Pandey, to really inaugurate the 18th Corporate Governance Summit. Once again, a very warm welcome to you, Mr. Pandey, for being with us here today, and a warm welcome to each one. Thank you very much for being here. Thank you. I would request the chairman of CII's Corporate Governance Summit, the Governance Council, and who has been also the president of CII, the past president today, to give his remarks at the summit.
Shri Tuinkanta Pandeyji, CB, colleagues from the industry, very good morning to all of you. As CB mentioned my father's name, you can see that CI is one of those organizations you can decide when you want to get in, you can't get out. But thank you, Shri Pandey, for your presence, and a very warm welcome to you and your team over here today. As industry, we recognize that SEBI plays a very proactive, facilitative, and cooperative role in streamlining the regulatory framework for listed companies and making regulations conducive to business and towards the growth and development of capital markets in our country. Industry also recognizes that SEBI adopts a consultative approach through a public consultation process before coming out with new regulations. And this is important because as we are all growing as a country, as industry, as individual companies, good corporate governance is going to continue to play an even more important role going forward. And in this context, let me raise what I think are 5 key issues relevant to most of us. The first is really about trust. In a world that is increasingly uncertain, that is building new networks, existing networks are getting questioned, the role of trust in business becomes even more critical. Trust is something that we can feel. It is reasonably, I would say, amorphous. At CII, we attempted in the last year to say that can we take trust and translate it into a more objective set of criteria so that for businesses, whether it's about building trustful partnerships, whether trust with the regulator, trust with investors, domestic and international, we make it a lot more transparent, easy to understand. And we put together a committee of some senior leaders, worked on this over the last, I would say, since November or so. And through a survey across select member companies, we've put together a publication on the shared responsibility of building and strengthening trust. This covers the connotation of trust, technology as an enabler, the stakeholder ecosystem for business, communication as an effective catalyst to build trust, shared responsibility of building and maintaining trust. So these are the various sections, and it ends with 15 action points which companies may undertake to build and strengthen trust. And we will be releasing this later today, in the next session actually. Now, when we talk of trust, we all understand that trust goes hand in hand with corporate governance. And that's the second point that I would like to raise, that as businesses getting more complex, many businesses will have an opportunity to go international in the coming years with all the new FTAs, BTAs that India is working towards signing. We have to ensure that our corporate governance, regulations, standards, our own adoption stays abreast with a lot of the changes that are happening, whether regulatory changes, business environment, expectation from investors and others. Moving more and more towards a balance of principle-based regulations, easier to understand, easier to implement, will go a long way for us not only to follow good corporate governance practices, but to also be able to communicate that. The third area is really the increasing role of board oversight. And this is once again a continuous process. We know that as the world is changing fast, regulatory changes will happen to keep pace with that. There are technological changes happening, issues around data, the digital world, cybersecurity, AI. All of these are new items that the board has to grapple with provide the right balance of oversight in managing risk, but also driving opportunity. Fourth area connected with this is around artificial intelligence. And it is quite possible that a large part of governance in the coming years is going to involve the role of AI. And we know that AI currently sits in some boards as an initial level of discussion, where maybe cybersecurity was a few years ago, mostly as a way of understanding the risks associated with AI. But we also have to keep in mind that AI is going to provide us tremendous opportunity. It's going to be a competitive edge, whether on the front-end sales side and acquiring customers, redesigning products, managing your processes, even internally in how you run HR, how you run finance, other departments. But to ensure that we leverage AI towards our competitive benefit, we have to first make sure we understand the risks associated with AI and put in place the right framework for the same. Towards this, CI again in the last few months put together a team and developed a guidebook on effective adoption and governance of AI for board leaders, and we will be releasing that today. Finally, as we are building good corporate governance, it's very important that this seeps into the culture of an organization. And I can at least talk personally about our own organization, where to effectively communicate some of our cultural aspects, we have created the concept of a culture wheel with a founder's ethos at the heart of it. In our earlier session, as I was speaking, I was saying that in India, we are very proud of the fact that we have large promoter-owned, promoter-driven companies. We have skin in the game. We ensure long-term continuity. Because if those businesses go down, we go down with them. And keeping this in mind, the role that that plays to make each and every employee feel and get aligned with a founder's ethos, a promoter's ethos, we think is at least important in our own organization. But this requires that expectations of the board from its team, empowerment, reward, and review must all be well aligned to ensure that the organization consistently outperforms. Our culture wheel is segregated into 4 mindsets with clear behaviors that explain these mindsets so that every employee all the way down the organization understands that. And the mindsets are: 1, growth mindset. We are not in the Western world where industries are growing at 1% and 2%. We are in a country where the opportunity is to grow at 10, 20% and more. So how do you build growth mindset, but with the right risks management around it? Customer obsession, being a talent builder to continue building future leadership, and finally being responsible. But integrating these into our culture, into the actions of various individuals, we think plays a very important role in ensuring alignment with trust, with good corporate governance practices, so that whether partners we deal with, customers we deal with, our own employees, regulators, and investors, we can work with them proactively and in a transparent manner to at least help them understand how we run our businesses. Finally, as I conclude, I believe the next decade and more belongs to India, and as we integrate more closely with the world market, ensuring greater and more transparent disclosure and proactive communication will be very key to ensuring greater success. So with these remarks, once again, thank you all for your kind presence, and I welcome you all to this 18th CI Corporate Governance Summit.
Thank you, Mr. Bajaj. We now have the launch of the publication, so may we request SEBI Chair Sir to kindly release the CI publication on the shared responsibility of building and strengthening trust. Thank you, sir. We also have another publication to release, which is the CII Guidebook on Effective Adoption and Governance of AI for Board Leaders.
Thank you, Chairman, for releasing two important documents, and we will, of course, socialize this in terms of taking it to our members, and will look forward to deeper interaction with you and your team, especially on both the documents. With that, it's a pleasure and honor to invite Shri Tuhin Kanta Pandey for our chief guest for the 18th Corporate Governance Summit to give his keynote address, please.
Mr. Sanjeev Bajaj, Chairman, CII Corporate Governance Council and past President CII, Mr. Chandrajit Banerjee, DG CII, distinguished captains of industry, ladies and gentlemen. A very good morning to you all. It's a privilege to be here today to speak about a subject that lies at the heart of a healthy and resilient capital market, and that's corporate governance. Today, I would like to share SEBI's perspective on this critical pillar of the corporate ecosystem. Corporate governance at its core is the system by which companies are directed and controlled. It defines the rights and responsibilities of various stakeholders, boards, management shareholders, and others, and lays the foundation for decision-making processes, transparency, and accountability. Good corporate governance is the foundation stone of a successful enterprise. From a regulator's perspective, high standards of corporate governance in listed entities are essential to protect the interest of the shareholders, especially minority shareholders. A major milestone for corporate governance in India was the introduction of Clause 49 of the Equity Listing Agreement in the year 2000, based on the recommendations of Kumar Mangalam Birla Committee. Clause 49 was further revised and strengthened based on the recommendations of the Narayan Murthy Committee. Corporate governance has evolved during the last 2 decades with revision in the Companies Act and codification of listing rules in the form of SEBI LODR Regulations 2015. And over the last 25 years or so, we have been keenly engaged in enhancing the standards of corporate governance in India. This engagement primarily stems from our mandate to protect the interests of investors. Today, we have over 13 crore investors in our ecosystem, investing across 5,400 plus listed companies as compared to 4.9 crore 5 years ago. Similarly, the number of mutual fund investors have now grown to 5.4 crore from 2.2 crore as at end of FY20. Increasing penetration of our securities markets, rise in retail shareholding, including through mutual funds, accompanied with increase in size of the listed universe, sets the stage for greater significance of corporate governance. In today's world, good governance is no longer a best practice. It is a necessity. It is a bridge between performance and trust. For listed companies, robust governance mechanisms are essential for enhancing investor confidence through transparent disclosures, board independence, and effective oversight. It promotes well-informed decision-making, strategic guidance, and accountability, thereby aligning the interests of management with those of shareholders. Companies with sound governance structures are better positioned to manage risks, respond to stakeholders' expectations, and adapt to changing environments. This long-term orientation supports value creation, financial resilience, and sustainability. A company known for strong governance enjoys a positive reputation, which can lead to better credit ratings, easier access to capital, and higher valuations. For us, governance is not just a matter of oversight. It's a strategic imperative to protect the interest of shareholders and maintain the integrity of the market. So governance failures in large corporates can have ripple effects across the market and economy. Preventing such failures is essential to maintaining financial stability. By mandating disclosures, board structures, and oversight mechanisms, we aim to create a self-regulating environment that encourages ethical and responsible corporate behavior. So SEBI has been instrumental in strengthening the corporate governance in listed companies. And as I said, that SEBI LODR regulations specify the corporate governance requirements for listed entities in India, which is a mix of principles and rules. The principles governing the disclosures and obligations include the right of shareholders, timely dissemination of information, equitable treatment, transparency, responsibilities of board of directors, while the rules relating to corporate governance include composition, role, responsibilities of board, its committees. Now, disclosures are periodic and event-based. To ensure transparency and information symmetry in the market, SEBI has specified periodic disclosures of certain information, such as quarterly disclosure of shareholding pattern, compliance with corporate governance requirements, financial results, and deviation in utilization of funds. To prevent information asymmetry, there are also event-based disclosures of material events or information, such as disclosure of material events within the specified timeline, disclosure of events which may have material impact on the performance or operations of the listed entity. Such disclosures ensure that the stakeholders have equal access to material facts and information related to companies' operations and performance. This promotes level playing field by bridging the gap between company insiders versus outsiders and the better decision making by the investors. So some regulatory measures, instances of false, inadequate, inaccurate, misleading, and delayed disclosures of material information by listed entities leads to information asymmetry in the market. In order to bring more transparency and to ensure timely disclosure of material events and to facilitate a uniform approach in determining materiality of events of information, and after consultation with stakeholders, we have amended the LODR regulations to introduce quantitative threshold for determining materiality of events and information. Similarly, guidelines have been made on timelines for disclosure of material events or information. To address the issue of perpetuity of special rights and to do away with practice of permanent board seats, we have brought in periodic shareholders approval, which is once in 5 years, for any special right granted to a shareholder of a listed entity. And also periodic shareholders approval every 5 years for any director serving on the board of a listed entity. To strengthen the independence of independent directors and enhance their effectiveness in the protection of interests of minority shareholders, SEBI has mandated that at least 2/3 of the members of the audit committee must be independent directors. Now, the ease of doing business is important, and there have been some initiatives recently. To promote ease of doing business, SEBI has introduced single filing system for listed entities. Tech-enabled single filing system now eliminates the requirement of filing the same documents across multiple exchanges. With the advent of technology, there is substantially reduced reliance on newspapers for getting information on financial results. Thus, to reduce the compliance burden, SEBI has made it optional for listed entities to publish detailed newspaper advertisement with regard to disclosure of financial results in newspapers. Further, to promote ease of doing business, timelines for disclosure of outcome of meeting of the board of directors that concluded after trading hours has been increased to 3 hours from earlier 30 minutes. Similarly, the timeline for disclosure of litigations or disputes involving claims against the listed entity has been increased to 72 hours from 24 hours earlier, subject to maintaining such information in structured digital database. And recently, we have provided flexibility for companies by allowing either assessment or assurance of BRSR core disclosures. This reduces compliance burden while ensuring credibility of data reported under BRSR core. ESG disclosures for value chain are now voluntary and applicable from FY 25-26. But is that enough? So what's the way forward? As a regulator, SEBI has laid down a comprehensive governance framework on the corporate governance. We have taken measures to protect the interests of investors, at the same time tried to facilitate ease of doing business. But to achieve the desired objectives, we need to have a collaborative ecosystem. There needs to be a balance between regulation and ease of doing business. We are conscious that over-regulation can stifle growth and innovation. At the same time, too little regulations can also lead to decline in trust of stakeholders and adversely impact growth. Thus, there is a need for optimum regulation. Regulations need to be rationalized by removing what is no longer relevant and reducing overlaps. Stable and adequate financial regulation can help in creating a high-trust environment, increase attractiveness for investors, and promote economic growth. What we can do about effective self-regulation by entities? We need to move from a thinking of minimum compliance to maximum governance. Boards must rise above routine and ask difficult questions, and auditors and independent directors must act as gatekeepers of integrity. Our regulations, which are LODR, lays down the principles which outline the essence of expectations of SEBI from the boards. There is an emphasis on doing the right thing for the right reasons, asking the right questions, constructively challenging management, demonstrating sound judgment, possessing an independent perspective, and avoiding groupthink. Corporate governance is not a matter of regulation alone. It's a matter of conscience. SEBI will continue to expect higher bar on governance, but true and lasting change must come from within the corporate boardrooms and cultures. And Mr. Bajaj was actually mentioning, he was giving a glimpse of what they are doing about their own organizational cultures. And there are several good practices, and those need to be carried forward, those need to be propagated. There is a need for industry to adopt RegTech solutions, which is use of technology-based solutions for complying with regulatory obligations that can help in improving compliance reporting, streamlining processes, and improving the operational efficiency. SEBI and first-line regulators, which is exchanges, are deploying SupTech solutions for effective and enhanced supervision. The use of technology by regulators has been very helpful in detecting early signs of market abuse and non-compliances. Harnessing technological advancements could further reduce the potential blind spots, market misconduct, and instill a culture of continuous compliance amongst regulated entities. The governance is not about ticking boxes. It's about building institutions that can be trusted for years and decades. It's not an easy path, as it involves sacrificing some short-term gains. But it is the only path to have a sustainable growth and development of a corporate. At the end, I would urge all of you, corporates, directors, professionals, and investors, to be active partners in building a stronger governance ecosystem. Thank you. Jai Hind.
As we close this session, let me once again thank Chairman SEBI for being with us at this 18th Corporate Governance Summit and for his remarks, where he was both open, candid, talked about the need not only on governance side for regulation but voluntary adoption, acknowledging the requirement for some amount of regular springtime cleaning on old regulations, but also the need to keep pace with the changing environment. So thank you, sir, for the same, and with that, we'll close this session. Thank you.
You are coming?
Ladies and gentlemen, just give us 5 minutes. We will start with panel 1 right away.
Requesting everyone to settle down. We are starting the plenary session 1.
requesting members to settle down, please. We're ready to start with panel 1 on building trust.
You don't know what you're saying, by. Okay, can we settle down, please? Thank you. Let's get started. We are running a little late. We have some people in the front. Can you all sit down, please? Thank you. Mr. Damodaran, Hitendra, Kaku, Shifali, and guests, welcome to the first plenary session of our 18th Corporate Governance Summit. This session is on trust, and some of you all have been here from the earlier session where we talked about the importance of building trust, and to CII, how this has been a key priority in the last few months. Once again, we know that in an increasing international but uncertain environment, the role of trust for business becomes even more important. We also know that trust has various dimensions, whether it's about relationships between businesses, whether it's with the regulator, your own investors, and other stakeholders. We believe that trust plays a very significant role. It is reflected in increasing customer loyalty, a strong goodwill with partners, higher employee morale, and greater investor confidence. We also know that good corporate governance adoption and trust really goes hand in hand. And companies in India have made significant strides in adopting good corporate governance practices. And yet, in an ever-changing world, this isn't a one-time effort, but more a continuous effort as the external situation, competition, internal issues keep changing. How do we ensure that we keep adopting the best corporate governance practices? And that's where trust and corporate governance goes together. Now, a simple question is, what is trust? We believe that it represents the belief that an entity will act with integrity, with fairness, and with transparency in all its dealings. Trust is built over time with consistent action, ethical behavior, and reliable performance. Ensuring that an organization works with trust will ensure an organization does well in the long term. And building trust has been, as I mentioned earlier, a key focus area for CII. And again, as many of you have seen, we've put together a publication that in detail tries to translate trust into a set of measurable KPIs which companies can voluntarily adopt. And it's this publication that the respected SEBI chairman released just a few minutes ago. We couldn't have a better panel with us to discuss what is trust and the relevance of trust and good corporate governance, which are intertwined. So let me start by posing a few questions to our audience and get them warmed up. What are your thoughts on trust as it means to you? As corporate India, where do you think we are on trust? And how should corporate India build trust from here? So with those starting questions, may I request first the ladies over here, Shefali and Kaku, to get started. Thereafter, a doyen of governance, Mr. Damodaran. Somebody else said veteran of governance, so I said no, doyen of governance. He's younger in spirit and action than most of us. And then Hitendra. And then we'll make it more interactive. Shefali.
Thank you, Sanjeev. So, trust as a subject, of course, is, the most talked about right now. And as the tone has been set by the SEBI chairman himself, there is an overall expectation that everybody needs to go a little extra mile on that. Now, trust, as we understand, I think it's a feeling, and we spoke about that, right? It's something intangible, but it can really translate into very tangible outcomes. So something which is so core to the successful companies, a differentiator of some sorts, which really shows the outcome in terms of a long-term sustainable growth of a company. It's about how you are giving that psychological safety to all the stakeholders of the company. And in terms of overall, it's really something which runs through the backbone of the entire organization. And I would say that where we are in terms of the, as a corporate India, I think we still have some grounds to cover. And this is something, it's a journey. It's a journey for us. We've done some survey on that in terms of the global boardrooms. And what we've learned and heard from our participants is that 1/3 of the companies feel that the trust does not get discussed at the board level till the time that there is an actual breach. So clearly, I think we still need to bring the trust more into the active agenda and proactive agenda for the boardrooms. But with that, maybe I can hand over to Kaku.
Many years back, I was in the audience when, sir, you were speaking on corporate governance. And we've come a long way on that. And Sanjeev, I must really, I'm very happy that we're discussing trust. And this is the right time for India to be discussing this going forward, because our time has arrived and we need to build on it. Coming to trust, where it is, I feel trust is also confidence. Trust also gives you visibility that you can perform. So earning that trust, I think in the geopolitical scenario, we have done a lot in the 9 years, but we can do a lot more. Coming to corporates, I would divide it into 2 parts. One is India's top corporates, which we would say 100 odd, always were known for their corporate governance, and they really got valuations that really talked about it. In the recent times, there are many more new companies that are coming up, which is great, and they actually are divided into 2 parts. It's not about, that they are not doing what they have to do, but probably what the global markets expect or what Indian retail public expect is a lot more. So I think on that scale, in the last 9 years, we might have moved from 5 to 7.5, but we have the last mile, so that India, everybody looks into the first bucket.
Thank you for having me on this panel, because my views are normally discordant, and therefore every time I get onto a panel, I might lose a few friends, both in the panel and in the audience. But I have taken permission to say some things that might not be exactly right. So you asked a very interesting question: what is trust? Let me address the question, what is not trust? I think what is not trust is looking after your personal agenda to the exclusion of the agenda of the others, whether it is the company in which you are, the society in which you live in, your family or whoever. The I, me, myself is the exact opposite of what trust should be, because trust involves believing in someone, having faith in someone, transacting with somebody on the basis of trust. Trust, as you said rightly, and I think the chairman SEBI also said that, is the foundation on which transactions can be done. If there is no trust, there cannot be transactions, because they will leave you uneasy at that point of time. Trust, I saw the importance of this one day before I took over as the chairman of the Unit Trust of India. The word trust exists in that name. One day before, and that one day before is important. I saw a cartoon which had Unit Trust of India written on it, and the trust seemed to have fallen off. It was at a lower level. Why is the one day important? If it had come 2 or 3 days later, I would have thought it was a reflection on me and my assumption of office. But whoever did that did it a little earlier, gave me a comparative sense of happiness. Trust had collapsed. The collapse of Unit Trust of India, and I cite this as an example, was not only about not having the money to pay the unit holders, not only about being unable to keep promises, but losing the trust of every stakeholder in the ecosystem in which you operated. Look outside India, go to the United Kingdom. After the 2008 meltdown, banks and financial institutions started distrusting the instruments which were issued by some others. And the entire system was based on trust until distrust crept in. So I think we need to, as you said rightly, we need to work on trust. Trust doesn't happen. You have to understand the importance of trust. You have to continuously work on it to see that trust is maintained. You take your eyes off the ball and your stumps will go. That is the problem that trusts have. The other issue about trusts, and I will make only one more point at this stage, is that everyone in the ecosystem needs to do more to build trust. The regulator needs to send out a signal that I don't see the entire regulated universe as a bunch of crooks. And therefore, I'll wake up every morning and write a new regulation. We have luckily, and I wrote about it, we have luckily a chairman who's talking about optimum regulation. This is music to the ears of those who've been part of the ecosystem for longer than one cares to remember. You shouldn't believe that everyone is a crook and then do that. We are, in some sense, not just in the area of securities market regulation, but elsewhere, standing our entire jurisprudence on its head and requiring whoever is accused to lead evidence that he or she is not guilty. It's taking the burden off the persons who accuse someone else of being guilty. You look at what the Reserve Bank is doing. It has moved from regulation to control to micromanagement. No, it might as well sit in the boardrooms of banks and transact business. That's the only thing left. Everything else has been done by way of dictating what you need to discuss. And of course, the extreme absurdity, which is that inspection reports, and I'm not sharing a state secret, it's known to people in the system. Inspection reports say, we don't see any evidence of directors having participated in discussions. Why? Because the names are not mentioned there. But meetings have taken 3 hours, 4 hours. So what would they have been doing in that room unless they were discussing what was on the agenda? And yet the Reserve Bank says that this is a negative input because we don't see evidence of the participation. Lack of trust. You don't trust the board. Therefore, you start deciding what boards should do. Boards don't trust management. Therefore, they step into the terrain of management regularly. Managements, in any case, don't trust boards. They think it's a waste of time having a board, that it's what I call a statutory diversion from the conduct of business. That is what they think boards are. So everywhere there's distrust, and everyone needs to work on it. Just one point of minor disagreement, I cannot disagree with somebody like you, is the big companies are not necessarily the best practitioners of governance.
I work for a very small company called HSBC, so I don't think he's talking about us at all. But to answer Mr. Bajaj's question, I think we know what is trust, right? I mean, it's very difficult to define. I know CI has made a very fine effort at it, but ultimately we know, right? Within the family, you know, we trust some people more than we trust others. Within an organization, we trust some people more than we trust others. In an organization where you don't trust someone, you will find that communication breaks down, that collaboration breaks down, that partnership breaks down, and it has effect, right? Your teams also start feeling it, that there are two individuals at the top. So I think trust is difficult to define, but I think the SEBI chairman himself gave a fantastic example earlier in the morning when he said the joint stock company is the greatest fiction anyone's ever created, right? And the reality is a lot of us will not give our money to our friends. But because there is a joint stock company which is listed on the exchanges, we will happily part with our 100 or 1,000 or more money. We don't know the company's management. We certainly might not know most of the promoters. We will never meet most of the promoters all our life. We might not even know what they produce. We don't know who the executive management team is. But that is the best example of trust, right? That is a trust created through the work of the regulator, the market infrastructure agencies, and obviously the entire intermediary chain. So I think I'm glad that we're talking about this subject, because as, you know, if the government trusts the taxpayers much better, Sir mentioned about regulators and regulated entities, etc. I think with great trust, great things do happen. I think, and we have seen, you have organizations that are known to be trusted and reliable. They will not only get better employees, they also get better customers. They also get customers for a very, very long. I'm working for an organization where we are celebrating our 160 years today, and there are families which have continued entire 160 years. For 160 years, we have had great-great-grandfathers and grandmothers pass on, and that, I assume, is a reflection of the trust that we have with them and they have with us. On the second part of the question, where is India Inc. in this journey of trust? I think, I mean, I can give you a little example from my own HSBC perspective. There are companies that tell us this is what we are going to do with the money, this is the end use, this is what our project is, and we will take it at face value because there is a trust established. And there are other companies, we will ask for projection reports and subject those projection reports to some further due diligence. That is an indication that we are yet to get into that situation. So in that vein, I would say the corporate boardrooms of India, I think, you know, they're on different journeys. There are some companies which are very, very high, and there are some companies which I think, unfortunately, have just done a lot of things. And, you know, we are reading a lot of newspaper reports these days where you will never trust them for a long, long time. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's try and make this interactive, though I'm not sure. Do we have mics over here? Okay, maybe we'll try and see that we can hear people. So yes, so I've got a few questions here anyway, but let's open it up as well. Yeah, so we have one question here. Sorry, so let's start with Mr. Nanda.
So I want to share, I'm probably the oldest accountant in the room. I did my CA in 1969. I want to share a little experience to get to the next stage. I was 21 years old. I used to work for a British company, and our account was, then it was called Hong Kong Bank. There was an urgent payment to be, statutory payment to be made, and I had no signing authority, and my boss was out of town. There was a Mr. Black who was the manager, and I said, I've got the problem, and I promise you I'll pay you the check tomorrow. And he approved the check. Now this is what, because we talked about trust and Sanjeev talked about trust. From there, we got these RBI forms and regulations, and you know, I have seen the whole transition. It used to be one letter Then there were some cash flows and all that. Then the RBI had Form 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then there was a summary from that. I don't remember having read in Statesman in those days of an account failure. There was nothing as NPA. I had not heard the word NPA, let me tell you that. Till about 10 years ago or 15 years ago, there was no word NPA which we had read in the newspapers. What do you think is the problem? Because I worry about tomorrow. Because the more regulations, the more defaults. You pick up the paper this morning, somebody is caught in Belgium, somebody is caught in this, somebody bought a flat out of the money. What the regulation is doing to help good governance is a question which probably I've got old, that's why I can't figure it out.
We'll ask Mr. Damodaran. The difficult questions are for Mr. Damodaran.
Arun, you might be the oldest accounts person in the room, but I'm willing to wager a bet I'm the oldest guy in the room. So, by a few months, certainly. We compared notes on that not so long ago. I think the answer lies in the dictionary. I know it's an outdated document. Nobody looks at the dictionary any longer. But you take the word grief in the dictionary. Before that, you take the word greed. Turn a few pages, you'll reach grief. This is the problem which people who adopt, the shortcuts, abandon the highways, take the expedient routes, this is what is awaiting them at the end of that. It's not for regulation to catch every crook and punish them, no. In fact, regulatory philosophy should be look at the systemically important cases, the big ones, and see that punishment which is serious, which is disincentivizing, is handed out quickly so that it sends a signal to the system. Instead, what we are having is a whole bunch of cases where a 10 rupee case, because it was filed 2 days before a 100,000 crore case, gets primacy when it comes to attention. So I think systemically important matters, if you deal with quickly, you'll send a message to the system. Ultimately, people need to believe that companies are for the long run. It will survive you, it will survive your children, your grandchildren. It should be, companies should be for perpetuity or near perpetuity. If that is the case, you must ensure that it is run properly. And I think Sanjeev said, for years they've been running it based on certain value systems, certain principles, and they know that that is something that is absorbed completely in the organization. It doesn't stay in the boardroom at all. Now, what is important here is for the regulator to do a limited portion, but for shareholders, for directors, for people who are in that company to ask the questions at the right time. And any corporate failure, if you analyze, and I've looked at hundreds of them, you will find that people are either asleep in the boardroom, asleep with their eyes open, that's also a fine art, but otherwise may be distracted by the IPL scores. Luckily, it's happening after board meetings these days. It doesn't happen during daytime. But focus, attention, coming prepared to boardrooms, that is where most of these problems arise.
Yes.
Sanjeev. My name is Chandrakant Salunke. I'm a president of SME Chamber of India. My question to Mr. Damodaran, what is your observation about particularly SMEs listing on smaller SME stock exchange? Particularly, they are facing problem to get listed for some reasons. Are they not having the trust in a capital market, or the capital market is not having trust on the SME sector? Second question to Mr. Dave, since you are identifying the SME champions from the different sectors, and still the banks are not having trust on the SME sector. And third question to Sanjeev, since we are talking about corporate governance, most of the corporates in India are not paying trade receivables to SME sector on time, even though there is a regulations, even though there is a trades platform, even the RBI and all the corporate affairs ministry is pushing. What is the future of SME sector since we are marching towards Viksit Bharat? whether we will achieve that target before 2047 or 2037? Question to you.
You can't be so gender biased. There are two ladies here also, in case two more questions are there.
No, it said.
No, let it be at 3.
Your first question was whether SMEs are not wanting to list or not being encouraged to list. Both sides. I think what is important is that when you want to list, you must be prepared to comply with the higher norms that listed entities have to comply. Unfortunately, compliance has a cost. And there are some smaller entities which look at that as expenditure and not as investment. If you look at the money that you spend on compliance as investment and not as expenditure, then you will see things differently. But if you start saying, oh, I need to spend so much money in order to remain compliant, it's best that I stay out of listing, obviously you will not get whatever benefits exist. Going to a larger community of investors, all of that will not happen. The second thing is, I think SEBI has done quite a lot. SEBI and the exchanges have done quite a lot to encourage the listing by SMEs. If SMEs know what's good for them, come for listing with completely prepared on day one to hit the ground running. You have everything in place so that you are completely compliant on day one without leaving it late. Part of the problem in our ecosystem is I'm moving away from SMEs to startups. I keep talking to startup founders regularly. And while they may not articulate this, especially when speaking to an older person, age has some advantage, you know that their entire philosophy is first few years I'll focus on growth. I will look at valuation. We'll get to governance later. When we have grown to a certain size, we'll get to governance. And there is a problem because it will be too late. You're leaving it late. Governance cannot run ahead of business. At the end of the day, governance, regulation, all of these are means to an end, which is the orderly conduct of business. These are means to an end. We should not look at regulation as an end in itself or governance as an end in itself. But that said, you need to see that as an essential ingredient of running your company in a sustainable manner. SMEs, I think, have enough going for them. I will say this, because I sense that your concern comes from the fact not enough, in your view, is being done. There was a time when the government ignored the SME sector. And the focus entirely was on the larger sector. We've corrected that. Over a period of time, there has been a correction. There's a separate exchange. There are separate listing requirements. There are several other incentives to list. I think we are in a good place. We are not in a great place yet. But we'll get there. I don't think there's a regulatory bias against SMEs, I'll say.
Let me ask your next question. Since it is linked to SMEs, I'll ask Hitendra and then I'll request Kaku to chip in as well, since both are bankers.
Yeah, no, I think since the subject of this session is trust, right? So first is, I think this impression, and this is to everybody, not just to Mr. Salunke, is that the fastest growing borrower category in India for the last few years has been MSME. So there's this myth that banks are not lending to MSMEs, right? So that's one thing. It needs to be. Now, that doesn't mean each and every MSME who applies for a loan will be given, because the loan will be evaluated as, I think every time we have a session like this, people have to understand that the bank, when it lends, makes, say, between 150 basis points to 550 basis points. But when it loses, it gets back 1.5 to 5.5% of what it lends. Okay, so it's very asymmetrical, unlike equity, where if you make multiple returns, and when so therefore there is sensible caution. Banking, we are lending depositor money, right? I mean, the worst thing you want a bank to do is to tell a depositor, can you come back day after tomorrow, please? Because I currently do not have the money, right? So please understand why banks are cautious. There is no such thing as a non-cautious bank. That doesn't exist for too long, actually. So I think, and on the data, I think, like I said, I think with the sir mentioned about the change in approach of the government and regulators. I think if you see what's been done, the Udyam certification, right? If you have an Udyam certificate, you naturally get qualified as a eligible for priority sector MSME, which wasn't the case till what, 4 or 5 years back or so. We had to go after individual borrowers. The corporate guarantee scheme issued, the CGT SME issued via SED. I think there's more than enough options. I would think well-run MSMEs today are being chased by banks as opposed to the other way around. If those that are not being chased, they have to earn the trust. That's what I would say.
Just to add to what Hitendra said, I think the other thing that has really working is the payments. Every payment is now digitized, and the account aggregator, which the government has rolled out, also enables velocity of payments to actually give loans, which was not possible. So there have been new criteria added for MSME loans. And I think that has actually made more penetration than in the last 2 years than it had ever done. So I think if some of the MSMEs concentrate on the criteria to get the loans, the ones which are not getting progress will be able to actually qualify there.
And to your question, I think that's a very obvious point, paying on time to not only MSMEs, but to everybody. We know sometimes that can be a challenge, sometimes there are genuine issues. Other times it is seen more as a negotiating tool. As CII, and you may know this, even in our National Council, we periodically do take it up and emphasize this, at least for our members. Because we realize that if larger companies have a problem, for smaller companies it's an even bigger problem. It's a life and death issue normally, managing working capital. So fully understand that. And it is something we emphasize on as well. Yes.
Question for Mr. Damodaran. Sir, there is one more stakeholder, which is the common citizen, the Aam Aadmi of the country. Now, when you say that the RBI is being overbearing, this citizen has the confidence in the banking system because the regulator is being overbearing. In a country where a cooperative bank can fail or a company can release gas in a city and kill thousands of people, and the management and the board goes unpunished, don't you think that it is better that the regulator be a little more overbearing rather than being more relaxed?
Mahendra Bhai, I don't want to enter into an argument with you. You and I have been on the corporate governance journey together for years. But the real issue is if RBI was all that vigilant. It is very active, hyperactive. I think we've moved from activism to adventurism in the regulatory space. Then all those big banks would not have failed. Forget the cooperative banks. We've had big banks failing in India. Today the newspapers are talking about several thousand crores being lost by one big bank, which has been regularly inspected by the RBI. So it's not prescription that is going to aid better governance. It is how you go about your task of putting in place checks and balances, etc. I have a simple definition of governance, and I urge regulators and others to follow this. It's not complicated. It's doing the right things at the right time, in the right manner, for the right reasons. That's it. And if that informs the way in which you conduct business, you won't be false to any man, as Shakespeare said. Now, the real issue is you have more and more regulation. The brighter guys, the smarter guys will find a way around it, no matter how tight your regulations. It is that common man for whom you and I feel strongly who will pay the price of excessive regulation. Because even regulation has a price. Who picks up the tab? The guy at the end of the chain picks up the tab. That is the guy whom you're seeking to protect. In his or her name, you're writing regulations. He or she picks up the tab, and it might not have the desired impact. What is best and what India needs the most, and I think CII should lead the effort in this, is a nationwide campaign for investor education. Better informed investors will ensure that you have more order in the marketplace. If investors are not informed, there will be people that take them for a ride, no question about it. So one of the things that went wrong is at the National Institute of Securities Market, the School for Investor Education was discontinued 2 years ago. I was happy to hear this morning that the new chairman has decided that he's going to get that, so breathe some oxygen into it and see that it steps up. That is the weak piece. We don't have investment advisors. We have product pushers masquerading as investment advisors. You're pushing one product and saying this is the best for you without understanding what his or her needs are. You need better investor education, better investment advisors, and more of them. And then you'll see a better marketplace.
Okay, Shafali is feeling left out, so I'm going to ask her a question. You work with companies, large, medium-sized, maybe even a few small companies. In your experience, what are the areas when you look at Indian companies where you believe that they stand high on trust, and are there any areas where you think they need to do more?
So again, I think, big or small, I think there's a common belief on the panel that does not really define your trust index, right? It's all about culture. And this is where we are seeing that now as the boards are getting more and more warmed up to this, there is enough effort being put, and the boards can really play a very pivotal role. We have many, directors in the audience. But if this is one thing that, everybody can take back, it's about how they can really foster the culture of trust in the business. And it goes across, right from the leadership level down to the employee level. And you can see the outcome in terms of whether it is, the leadership, the employee retention, the customer loyalty, and the brand resilience. We've seen various incidents, across the countries, where if there is any incident related to any consumer product, but if the organization has really got its trust right, then I think it does not take long for the brand to bounce back. And that just shows, how important and critical the brand is. But as if it's just going to be a check the box exercise, then it does not really get us too far. And having that enterprise trust framework, which really examines the different domains across the organization and gets us, it's a serious attention that you need, which can really help the companies, the organizations, build their trust factor further. And it is honestly believing in something, right? And you can see, even though it is not in the regulations, and Mr. Damodaran is right, the regulations can only take you this far. I think the larger part of the work has to be done by the companies themselves, the management, and the boards who have to really lead in showing the way. They can be the torchbearers of trust in this. And if they are able to show and adopt some of the best practices from across other countries, we've got the OECD guidance, which is on the responsible corporate behavior, which is about, it ranges on different things about anti-competition behavior, or how you would comply with the local laws in each of the countries, or what will be the extent of disclosures, even if it is not required by your regulations. So the self-disclosure part, or even disclosing some of the stakeholder consultations, putting the summaries in your annual reports, which shows how aware you are as an organization and how vulnerable and transparent you are willing to be. Including, how you can have a good corporate or responsible tax practices, for that matter. So all of this, it's ingrained into different parts of the corporate that can really show your trust quotient. And the boards can certainly play a big role in building that culture of trust.
Yes, please.
She referred to annual reports, and I want to make a plea using this audience. I can't get a better audience than this to place this proposition before you, which is that if your annual reports are written in simple sentences and in bullet points, and are not written in complex sentences so as to confuse and confound the reader, there will be more trust by those that read the reports in those that write the reports.
Yeah, so we've got two people over here. Let's start with the person. Aja, mic is with the person behind. So the gentleman, Aja, you also got one. Okay, you can get started and then behind you.
Yeah, good morning, sir. Hello. Yeah, good morning, sir. This is Sanjay Panda. I was working with Tata Group for 18 years. I am the first CSR AOD from Tata Groups, which is well known for trust only. So now thing is that, sir, I want to know from Damodaran sir or Bajaj sir, whoever will be, what will be your 1.1 line for the new people who are building their companies for coming years, okay, might be how they will use the trust on their thought when they are building the company. So that's my question. Because now my only thought is that what is happening currently, sir, when the startups are building, they feel that the compliance are too high when they are building the company. The other way around, they are not thinking that trust will build
No,
for
we
a longer.
understand. If you want a one-line answer, then one-line question also.
Yeah, yes, yes. Okay, sir. Thank you.
You wanted a one-line answer, isn't it? I had a one-line answer. I lost it as you were supplementing. Can you take me back to your original question? I have a one-line answer.
Sir, question is that for the startups, what do you recommend how to build their trust on their business?
Very simple.
Yeah.
Every decision that you take, put yourself in the shoes of the stakeholder and see how it will impact him or her. And if you get a positive response, go ahead and do it.
No, great answer. Yes.
Yeah. Good afternoon. My name is Firdaus Vandriwala. Trust is one side of the coin. The other side of the coin is temptation. And if you want trust, then you have to avoid the temptation. And the only way you avoid temptation is not by the severity of the punishment, but by the certainty of it. Arun talked about his old days, so I'll refer to mine. From Jamshedpur to Calcutta, we would go by train for work. And we claimed first class. Many a times I was tempted to go by second class and claim the difference. As a percentage, it was very high. But I did not do it because I knew if I was caught, I would certainly be terminated. That was enough to keep me on track. And I think the focus should be, along with trust, how do we ensure certainty of punishment rather than severity of punishment?
Yeah, I think, as Mr. Damodaran says, and I agree, it's both the certainty and the significant. If you were certainty of punishment and the punishment was little slap on the back, you would probably still do it. I would hope that just following integrity, you would not do it, not because you may get caught. And that's true for all of us. But yes, temptation is always the other side of the coin. I think another way to look at it is also to focus on building long-term value. We are too often driven by various forces to focus on short-term value creation. I've seen in the Western world, company CEOs of large listed companies getting sacked for missing one quarter earnings. How do you blame those companies then for not cutting corners to show good numbers every quarter? And which company in the world for 12, 20, 50 quarters can continuously show growth in top line and bottom line? So then you're forcing. So I think even as investors, we have to ask that question as to, are we being fair to the companies we invest in? And that's where I think if you focus always on creating long-term value, you may have some slower years. You may lose some value there. But management will then be armed with taking good quality decisions. And again, for boards, very important to align management incentives also for the long term. So each of these things play an important role. Yes.
Yeah, in fact,
Gentleman
it's
there.
more of a continuation of the earlier, just 2 questions ago. Like,
Who is this? You're okay.
Yeah. Now here the situation is there's a new company which is just created, or it's not like an immediate startup, but maybe 2-3 years ago, but they need financial muscles. To get the financial muscles, of course, their focus will be more on generating revenue, and they may say that, okay, once we have financial muscles, maybe 4 or 5 years down the line, we will look at compliance and expand compliance and governance, but not today. Today they need sales, today they need revenue. Now, this is a situation because without that also survival may be an issue. So, how to tackle that?
That's an easy way out. Businesses are built for the long term. Yes, many businesses fail. That's the risk of building a business. But by taking shortcuts, which, as I said, very often people do get tempted to, is not the right solution. You know, the problem of wearing a white shirt is that very easy to get a black spot. Once the spot is there, you can't take it off. So as businesses, as startups, we have to decide for ourselves. Do you want to be wearing a white shirt all the time, or do you want spots early on because it helps you move ahead of the race, but those spots will never go off. And once you start that practice stays in the organization. That's what I would say. Okay, we have time for one last question. Yes. Yeah, all the three men over here are wearing white shirts. You have to ask the ladies why they're wearing dark clothes.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much for all your thoughts. Mr. Damodaran, my question is to you. It's a very sensitive topic. No, this is a question because you've been chairman of SEBI before. In
so
fact,
we can get a quick question
Sure.
from you, and then Anjali has a question. Let's get this quick question, because then we'll close with those answers.
Sure. So your tenure of SEBI overlapped with my tenure in media at one point. Since we're on the issue of trust, I just wanted to talk about something that impacts the large part of the population, which is the role of media and stock markets. I think today, and having been a very integral part of media and are now out of it, I think today in financial media, people have become so opinionated and practically bordering on the lines of giving recommendations. The kind of people that are focused on media, the penalties for insider trading, both by corporates as well as fund managers and brokers, are not severe enough. Now, this is a huge, at a time when you're talking about financialization of savings, and this is such a sensitive issue, and it has been for a very long time. As an ex-regulator, how do you think that this can potentially be tackled? Because people just seem to get away, and the penalties don't seem to be enough, both from people in financial media as well as who come on with ulterior motives. And I mean, it's a question I've got for the last 20 years wherever I go, but it never seems to be adequately addressed. And I'm sure people like Kaku, who, I've interviewed her as well during her Merrill days, but what's your thought on it? Because it's a very big trust deficit. Just your thoughts would be great.
Thanks. Let's quickly take Anjali's question, then we can answer both.
Can I be heard? Yeah. The question is really about what you said about short-term and long-term. Promoter-driven companies do have a long-term ethos, especially when it's a family business which has been around for a long time. Today, I realize that HSBC also has been around for a long time, and it's a publicly listed company. What advice do you have for publicly listed companies which have diversified shareholders? It's okay to say that investors should be patient, but what advice do you have to make this change happen? Because we see a lot of issues in those companies which tend to have a short-term view because of the markets.
Take that.
You know, I think, first of all, I think our chairman, and I'm sure the chairman before him also, have emphasized long-term thinking, right? You have to replace the promoter with the board that we will have. So we don't have any shareholder representative on the board as such. So therefore, I think the board members, and I sort of have had the privilege of discussing a lot of things with many of them, actually is really taking it like they genuinely feel they're representing the minority shareholders on the board. Second is obviously, as Mr. Bajaj mentioned, most founders will look at it as a multi-generational business. It's very important for professionally managed boards to incorporate that style of thinking. And the third, in fact, this is a personal anecdote I can share. About 25 years back or so, when my then chairman was here, and we were getting very agitated. Some bank were doing some funky cool stuff there, but our bank was taking a conservative view, or this mutual fund distribution churn business. We were not allowed to give incentives on sales at all, etc. I think his answer was, and that time we were about 140 years old or so, we want to be 300 years old. Okay, so and the only reason we'll get to being 300 years old is if we do not lose customer trust. So I think that word is re-emphasized again and again. So as long as the board makes trust a strategic priority, I think the rest of the organization then follows. Thank you.
To your question on the media, many years ago, many years ago, I found that there were lots of baseless reports which were adversely impacting share prices of some companies in the market. So at an informal gathering with the big boys and girls in the media, I mentioned this by way of advice, not by way of prescription. Who prescribes to the media? Media is playing God, we can't prescribe to God anyway. So all that I told them was that you are referred to as the pink papers. You must now start sourcing your newsprint from some good mills. Because the quality of newsprint has gone down, you are in danger of becoming yellow papers. And not pink papers, so be careful about this. This is all I said.
Thank you. Unfortunately, we've come to the end of this session. Let me thank the panelists for great comments, but also to you all for being so interactive and asking us a bunch of interesting questions. Thank you.
Now comes the tough part, photo. I've always believed after serving for 50